Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. We're going to do an extension of our cave, I don't know, call it series, I guess. But I was thinking about this scene from Lord of the Rings where Samwise goes and kind of rescues Frodo from Shelob, and I thought we would kind of create, I don't know, my version of that type of scenario here. I was thinking about just taking one of the little backpackers and putting a little cape on him. He's got that little backpack there. And I don't know if we can do it. We'll maybe tape this or glue this spider here to the piece, like it's kind of walking up behind him, maybe. Like in a little ambush. Little Halloween spider there. All right. Pretty simple to do. We'll just be working through a couple different distress inks and keeping in the color spirit of my first two scenes. And the rest will just be black ink, so it's a real simple structure in terms of the coloring. Let me go for a little bit of extra ink here. Okay. I don't re-ink very often, but this is going to be a pretty dark scene, so you want to ink up accordingly. All right. Tapping like that on my stamps. My pads just took a tumble here. I've got stacks and stacks of pads. Okay. As far as the composition goes, what I'm going to do is sometimes adding things at a little bit of an angle, having a diagonals, visual diagonals within a piece kind of adds somewhat of a dynamic nature to them inherently. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to create different holes and pockets, little tunnels, okay, for a gigantic spider to be able to walk through. Okay, so I'm going to go with the boulders, Brookside Boulders there. We'll go up here a little bit. I don't want things, I don't want things 90 degrees or something like that, but 45 is pretty good. Or, well, maybe we'll kind of arc it over like that a little bit, so I'll go like this here. So it's not on the same plane. I've kind of angled it a little bit more to kind of curve it around. I don't want everything kind of sloping off. I want it to have a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of a control over the piece in terms of the angle of it, okay? All right, well, let's see. We can go over here. Yeah, let's go like this. I need something for that spider to be on. I don't want it to be too apparent either, okay? Because it's kind of like ambush. He's getting ambushed here. But I don't want it just absolutely invisible to the viewer. Okay, now you can see where I'm going pretty well horizontal with this one. Actually, I have it angled a little bit, tilted this way, this other way here. So see this right here? It's kind of creating this type of situation here. Now what I'll do is I'll just kind of cap this off, and this will be like a dark tunnel right in here, And maybe I'll kind of create some other little, I don't know, tunneling areas in here. Okay, now here's the question here. Let's just go with black ink. And here's one of the things I've mentioned in previous videos is that we don't always have to just go with the inherent value of any given ink, okay? And I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, so I'm taking off a lot of ink off the top of this, and we'll take it off the bottom right here. I mean, if you have a gray, you can use that, but, within every one of your colors out there, you have every value of it, potentially, from its pure saturation all the way to white, okay, just depending on how much ink you take off of that. Now, when we do that, what we're doing is we're lessening the intensity as well as value of it, so it's going to be lighter and duller, the drier you stamp out the image, okay? So now that one right there, I mean, it's a very dry image, okay, but the thing is, the reason why I'm doing that is, if I stamp this in black, and I stamp this little character on top of it in black on black, I mean, it's going to really obscure the figure. So I want my little figure to stand out, okay? So I have to make this lighter, okay? All right, so I'm just going for some texture, though, okay? It's not real important. I got a little fly flying around here. I thought it was a piece of lint. All right, so see that right there? So I think that my little figure is going to stand out just fine when stamped in black against that, okay? So just, you know, ink up and stamp accordingly, all right? We'll go for even like the second impression, okay? So you're just going for a little bit of texture down there. I don't want to leave it just white because, you know, there's so much texture and contrast that's going to be happening in here. So, you know, if it's in all of this rocky area, chances are, okay, now this over here could be darker because I'm going to stamp my little figure over here. So I'll just go like that. Okay. Now this is not by any means real clean or anything like that. It's rather choppy looking and, you know, sloppy. But it doesn't matter though, because, you know, I don't need that to be, you know, perfectly smooth or anything like that. Okay, so let me go with this. I'm going to take off a lot of this ink right here. I have a little bit on it right here. I'm just going to go right up in between there, like that. Okay, all right, so that is that. Now, things couldn't be easier. Oh, you make it always look so easy. Well, if you make kind of your process real complicated, then it's going to be, you know, kind of more complicated. I wouldn't say complicated. It's just a more involved, you know, way to do things. If you're always positioning things, you know, careful, super careful masking, no overlapping, being, you know, super tedious about, you know, certain types of processes, which you have to be with certain types of stamps. But, you know, when we're talking about just scenic stamps in general, you know, and Stampscapes, stamps for sure, you know, the way that I design everything, it's supposed to be very easy to use, you know, in terms of your kind of involvement within the process of, you know, creating the compositions, you know. Okay, so there's a hole right there, and I'll make another hole right up here. So I want to come like this, all right? So see, there's all these little kind of holes for Shelob to go in there, so I'll darken those up. All right, so anyways, it's a pretty simple composition, right? We have 3 stamps right here. Now, I mean, I use the ledge down here because it has a different textural pattern to it, okay? So, I mean, you could have used this one, but, you know, from a textural pattern, it would blend in a little bit more, so I wanted to separate kind of floor from wall a little bit more. Okay. But doesn't have to be. That little gnat is bothering me. He must like to live in caves or something, maybe. All right. Hands are really dry. It's really sticking to my cotton balls here. All right. So, anyways, what can be easier than this? You know, it's just a tattered paper towel, right? You go like this, all right? Kind of smooth that out a little bit like that, and you have a little surface right there. Paper towels are meant to absorb, right? You're absorbing ink like so. All right, now, I mean, this is, you know, it takes a little bit of practice, but it doesn't take too much practice if you use it in this way, okay? Now, I'm not going for that amount, right? Just like using your stamps to make different value impressions. If I just go like this, you know, that is a very light application of it, you know? Everyone always wants to go like this. Everyone goes like that. Okay, I don't see anything, so they go like that, you know? And they say, oh my God, it's, you know, it's really hard to do. Now, it's not hard to do, but you do have to change your kind of notion of ink usage, though. Everyone wants a pure saturation of something. They want to go 100%. They're not really thinking about, you know, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 20, 30% gray that took 15 swipes to get it, right? But the longer you take to do something, to build something up, the more control you have over it, because with each little swipe or application of it, you're applying less media to it, right? So you just kind of stay in an area. A lot of people want to color like this too, okay? They want to color the whole thing, but what I'm doing is I'm just working one small area like this, okay? I wouldn't say it's one rock at a time or something like that. It's roughly about, well, maybe one or two, maybe one, like a 1-inch square area at any given time, okay? So that's how I just keep working it like that, and that's how I get this smoother kind of application going here. You want it a little bit darker, then just keep going a little bit darker. Now you don't, here's the other thing too. What I'm going to do is I'm going to generally tone this to a certain degree, okay? And I'm going to work it in its entirety, one little section at a time, all right? But here's the thing about that. I'm not going to take this usually to full resolution. I'm not going to go and tone it to, the degree that it will be when completely finished, okay? I'll take it about like that, and I'll take the whole area roughly like that. So what in other words, we're taking it from white to about, let's say, 30% gray or something like that, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll develop the shadows a little bit more, okay? So see this right here? So see? Now this is perfect because this is kind of getting dry on here, so I'm able to apply it without getting any harsh streaks or anything like that because there's hardly any ink on there. All right, so you just kind of keep the same consistency. Now, I mean, as this gets drier, you could, kind of use a little bit more pressure if you want to, or streak it a little bit more, but usually you just get darker by repetition and making things build up a little bit more, okay, like this. Now, all right, now what are we going to do here? So in scenes, what I tend to do is I look at this as a stage, okay? This is like your stage, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have little subject matter here, Samwise, okay, walking right here, not without these other two. And we'll put Shelob over here. So what I want to do is I want to spotlight our actor here, okay? So this area down here is going to be lighter. So if I want this to be lit, like being in a spotlight, that means I'm taking the area around it and making it darker. Spider's going to be up here, something like this. And so I'll leave that area a little bit lighter, okay? I still want her to be kind of in the shadows, though. I don't even want the viewer, when looking at this, to necessarily see that right away. It's like, oh, there's a spider, there's some legs, So the visual path will be like that hiker, or character is walking this way into the lair, or he's already in the lair maybe, and he's kind of exploring some of the different rooms or whatnot. Okay, so that you just keep building it up accordingly. You'll get used to it. And it's very, very easy to do. I did this. People were doing this as their first scene in my class, Stampscaping 201. 101 was just kind of adding color down one after another. And then what I had them do is I had them do a monochromatic piece as their first scene. Okay, take a little 5-minute break there. What I'm doing is I'm inking this up. Now, one of the things I thought I should bring up here is this is on glossy cardstock, and I am inking in with black dye-based ink. Okay, now if you've stamped everything out in most brands of inks, they're going to be, you know, they're going to stay moist a little bit longer, especially if you just, you know, do a fresh re-inking. Okay, now this is Marvy ink. It's thinner ink. I tend to think it's one of the darkest dye-based black inks, at least. But, okay, now, so if you start doing this and applying this type of surface, you know, contact with the surface here, it might kind of start smearing around some of your imagery. If it's doing that a lot, what you can do is heat set it a little bit before you start toning in like this, okay? But, you know, if some of this does kind of smear around, for me, I don't really care about that because the scene's going to be really dark and I don't need this imagery to be just absolutely crisp. Ideally, it would be, you know, underneath all the different tones or whatnot, but I don't need it to be because in the end, you really can't tell too much by the time I glaze this with some additional tone and apply that in there like so. Not going to matter. Okay, so anyways, you see how you just get that? Now, see, this is just copy paper, okay? And now, maybe you practice on copy paper, too. You know, and just getting those kind of, those real, you know, soft applications of ink like that. And what you're doing is you're transitioning it out like this, see? I can go long like this, harder pressure, and just wipe it in like that, okay? But you see how you get those different transitions like that, going from dark to light? And that's what you see here, going from dark to light like that, because usually I apply it on the outside edge in like that, okay? Now it's doing a sweep like that, okay? You know, like this. It's not going like this and up, okay? This is where people, they go like this, like you're, I don't know, applying paint to something like that, but it's more like doing a little, you know, swatch of something, you know, do a little sweep of it. And it's not kind of, you know, if you're not doing it that way, what you're doing is you're working really against the natural position of your hand like that, okay? See how it goes like that? Your hand doesn't move like that, okay? This is an awkward position, okay? It's just like this. All right? So just a little practice. I mean, you know, I don't know. Couple minutes, whatever. It's really just a few seconds, you know. But just kind of, you know, stay with that. And, you know, when you start getting drier like that, with your applicator, then just, you know, you can use a little bit more pressure, or you can dab like that too. Or, if it's nothing going on there, you just re-ink like that. All right, but do you see this? I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm not establishing things just instantly like that. You see how things are kind of coming into focus right here? See my little shadow, you know, my little highlight right there is kind of developed there. She's going to be in the shadows, you know, for the most part. And then my little subject matter, I think I'll put them right around right here or so. Okay, so I need to move this, you know, this highlighting a little bit closer in here, or I guess my shadow needs to move in closer. You know, it needs to come within the piece a little bit more. My paper towel is really kind of shredding to seem like that, but you know, you can just keep using it. It's like a little, kind of like it becomes like a rag or something like that. It's really kind of shredding because when I go on the edge of the paper and drag it in like that, it's kind of catching the edge. But that's what you want to do. You want to, you know, it's not like we're shredding some sort of, you know, expensive brush or something like that, you know, that probably doesn't even work as well as something like this. Okay? All right, now, when you can start doing in here, see how everything is kind of like 30% gray. You get a little bit darker on the edges and corners like that. But now is where I might start looking at kind of more fine-tuning, you know, slightly more fine-tuning. That I'm saying. It's not fine-tuning yet in terms of like super details, but the darker the area of the rock that's inherent in the design, I'm going to reiterate that with some more ink, okay? But no, it's important not to just, you know, ink up like this, you know? What you want to do is you want to develop it from darker to lighter like that. So what you just start doing is you start adding a little bit more down on the kind of lower portion. like so. I mean, this is not a fine-tuning tool right here, but just to show you what you can do, like that. See, like that, it's still kind of light at the top, and then, you know, here's another rock right on top there, okay? It's like a pile of rocks, okay? So like that, and it kind of makes them start looking a little bit more round, you know, dimensional. Kind of brings out the volumes in it. I try to create as much different, you know, as many different volumes as I can with my designs. But what I also do is I also create a lot of texture in them too. And you can use those cues there to develop your pieces. Right now, I'm always used to kind of creating kind of lighter areas like that, so it's going to be weird to kind of just tone that area out and make it, you know, kind of you know, shadows or whatnot. But we'll need to do that too here. I usually have light coming into my caves from the outside, but this one will, you know, this will be kind of the darkness in here. Maybe I'll put a couple little eyeballs in there, you know, like you know, the little you know, offspring of the spider. I might want a little bit more texture in there too. In fact, I think I'll do that. I'll just do that after the fact here. After the fact, after I tone it in, you know, in other words. See that? I'm just kind of, you know, inking it up there. That area in the back there. I'm going to use my smaller boulders with lichen like that. And I'll just kind of blot it off. Again, I just want to go for some general texture in there. Okay. Take that and just go like that. It's not even a clean impression, okay? But what that's going to do is it's going to read as a little bit of a kind of texturing in there just to say that there is something back in there, okay? Rather than just leaving it just blank, you know, where you just get, you know, some of this grayscale tone added in there with the ink. It makes it look a little bit better. It makes it look deeper, I feel. Okay. Sometimes when you start building up the ink on here, what you'll find is that kind of getting it too dark sometimes is difficult, because when that ink is wet, if you kind of go into it, you're almost, you know, you're removing ink more than applying it. All right, I think it's time for a new applicator. Here's what's really nice about just paper towels. Just flip it around like that. There's my new applicator. It's not even, this isn't even a whole piece of paper towel. It's like a quarter piece or something like that. Okay, and okay, but sometimes, you know, like I said, you start removing ink, you know, the more pressure you put down in there. So you kind of have to dab it around a little bit to build up little beads of ink on the surface like that. You can see how I'm kind of flipping my card around every which direction for this application of ink. It's just easier for me to go like that than to go like this and to reach across like that, okay? So just flip your cards around. You don't have to have it upright to know where you're applying ink, you know, something like this. Okay, so just put it in any direction in which is going to be the most conducive for the easiest application of media that you can get. Okay. So kind of working this on the shadows down here at the base of the rocks. You don't have to have this perfectly smooth. It could be darker here, lighter, darker, lighter. You know, you can kind of checkerboard it down there if you want to. You know, it's not, you know, we're not applying this thinking like, let me see, where would that light go? You know, would there be light there? I don't know, you know. It's not like that. It's just kind of, we're just applying it wherever we think it might look good. Now, as, you know, a general type of statement, I think it's good to kind of oscillate things a little bit more. You know, so it might not make sense from a lighting perspective. If the light was shining in there, would it shine on this or this or this? I'm just bringing attention, you know, to certain things. Okay, so what does that mean? Like in here, you can see things kind of changing around. There's a little bit of light here, it gets darker, lighter, darker, lighter, darker. You know what I mean? It's just kind of we're varying the surface here a little bit, or a lot, just to make things kind of shimmer. It, you know, there's this kind of off on off type of patterning that's going on here. See, there's rock right here, and then I have that rock right behind it, right? Well, let's make that rock stand out a little bit more. So I'll just put a little bit of tone on this one right here. Okay. So see, it just changed that, you know, that little section right there a touch. Okay. Back in here, I can't even see that rock that I stamped, you know, that extra pattern. So let's go for a stronger impression. I took some of the ink off first when it was really light. Same thing in here. Can't even see it. So what I'll do is I'll just ink up that side and I'll hit kind of a stronger impression in there now. You know, it's still, you can't see too much of it, but a little bit. See, something like that kind of adds to the overall I guess resolution of the piece, you know, enable, you know, as far as kind of the things that we can see, even if it's very subtle. Okay. All right, now I really like to kind of darken my four corners if possible. And when I say if possible, if I had a sun over here or something like that, then I wouldn't darken that part of it. Okay, it would just be light, okay? And I know kind of Shelob's going there, or just, I don't know, one of her brood or whatever will be there. I think this area down here is a little bit too light. I want it to be a little bit, or quite a bit darker. Okay, so we'll just darken it up. Now I am going to tint this overall with some distress inks. Okay, well, that kind of aged look to it. So I have to keep that in mind too. This is not, you know, the end result lighting scheme that we'll see in the piece. Okay, but yeah, I think things are just a little bit too light still, and I think I can go a little bit darker with this. At least in some areas. It doesn't mean you darken up the whole thing, okay? Like I want to make, kind of create a roof in here, so, you know, darken up things quite a bit on the top. When you flip this upside down, it's almost like, well, you know, it's like an abstraction. It's like one of those close-up abstractions or something like that. All right, see that right there? You got those openings right in there. They're a little bit, they could be a little bit darker. Maybe I'll hit it with like a pen or something like that. We'll see how this goes. Okay, there we go here. Now the one thing that I am, you know, kind of looking at here in terms of consideration is just what I was talking about. It's adding that distress ink there. So the thing that's kind of going through in my mind is, how dark do I take these areas in here? Because I know they're going to get darker anyways, because I'm going to layer some additional ink in there. So can you go too dark with this? I don't know. I mean, I definitely want to, definitely where the spotlit areas are going to be. I want to be able to see my characters in here. So I don't want to take this too dark. But I think just overall, I don't think there's any kind of danger of going too dark with this. Only, maybe, when it comes to variation, I guess you can go too dark. We can just darken in the whole thing, and then we won't be able to see any rocks. I guess, but I don't think anyone's going to do that. All this stuff, I mean, it doesn't happen just, it's not like, like super like fast brush calligraphy or something like that, where everything's so spontaneous and then instantaneous. So you can kind of just, everything kind of happens all in like, I don't know, 2% little increments, and of course it's just in a small area wherever we happen to be applying this to. Alright, but I think that is about right. And if I need to, I'll just add more black over the top of the other inks, when I get to that. Okay, now I have this Distress Ink Antique Linen pad out. I've hardly been using this pad, though. I'm just using it so that you can see what color that I'll be using, but I prefer just putting a few drops of ink down like that, and that just makes everything so much easier. All right. Okay, let me save this in case I need to go back to the black. I was going to use another part of it. Let's go to another new piece of paper towel. All right, I don't need this whole thing. I'll just use about half of it. Wad up. Let's see, I think this side's a little bit softer. So go like this. There's your applicator, okay? Don't have a bunch of like creases in it like that, okay? So just have it nice and smooth, flat. Ink up like so. Excuse me. All right. And just dab it on. Swipe it on. Whatever. All right, now I'm blending a lot of the the black. Let's heat set this. I'm usually not. I don't know. I usually don't heat set dye-based inks, but let's do it on this one. I won't go extreme with it and make sure everything is absolutely 100% dry, but you can see that black coming off of there by not kind of heat setting some of this. Certain types of ink brands will dry much lighter than what they look like wet. Okay, Marvy stays pretty close to black or whatever color you happen to be using, but some inks might dull out quite a bit. So as you go over it with the wet inks again, it'll kind of it'll show the spirit of a much darker version of that ink again. All right, now here's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of watching my lighting in here. I don't want to take out all that light in terms of the white. I could glaze over everything, but then I do want certain areas to show up a little bit more, so I'm just leaving them as is. But I'm generally coming into areas at least a little bit, even if it is going to be fairly light, okay, like right in here, okay. So there's nothing that I'm not going over, but I might not go over it very much, okay. And then areas where I want it built up, like usually in the darkness, I'll tap so that I'm kind of applying a nice buildup of that color. I really like antique linen as a nice tinting color because it's just very, very light. See that right there? Doesn't that give it a kind of a nice tinge overall? See all these holes are starting to, these little caverns or whatnot are starting to kind of take shape here pretty well. Now I'm starting to get my fingerprints in there when I tap in, because this ink on the side is really built up because I use that re-inker like that. All right, now just stay with this. Let's move over to Walnut stain. I don't even know if I have a re-inker for this Walnut stain, but I should get one because I use it quite a bit. I have other colors that are kind of in between these two colors, but I hardly ever use them. I find that this pair of antique linen walnut stain work really well together. See, it's just kind of a darker version of it. Now I do have some antique linen still in this, so we're creating kind of a combination of those two inks together. I don't know why, but it always seems like there's like kind of almost like a greenish tinge in here when I use these together like that. There's no green in like these two colors here, but I do kind of like that look just in terms of this combination. Alright, so just kind of tinting around. Remember, I'm not going into the lighter areas too much. I might make an adjustment and say, okay, I want some of this in that white, or I didn't leave it, I left it too white with the antique linen. Then, you can come into it with the darker tone like this, if you wish. It's getting really, really quite I don't know, whatever, glazed, I guess, in some of these areas here. And what I mean by glaze is when you layer kind of a transparent medium over one another like that. It's not, I'm not really well, I don't know. There might be some physical mixing of the antique linen and walnut stain, but not too much. You're kind of laying one over the other. I don't know, that looks pretty good to me, and I don't know, I think that's a really simple kind of way to work. We don't always do it that way. Sometimes I add in my lighter tones and I work up to the black in terms of toning, but I don't know, kind of doing an overall grayscale, kind of established scene, and then going in there and tinting it like a black and white photograph. It's another way to work. It's pretty fun. You have a lot of control over your kind of lighting, your lights and darks in here. Okay, going back into the black, I'm just using that same paper towel that I just used for those, because I have, create that transitioning color. I just want to create a little bit more shadow areas at the base of some of this. And it's applying pretty nicely because the paper is so wet. It just applies beautifully. It blends beautifully, because I'm at this point in time I'm kind of, I'm applying wet into wet, so it really spreads around nicely. In fact, it's so wet that if I want to add some down here like that, and if I don't like it, I can just wipe it right off. Because what you have is you're starting to achieve kind of the super saturation of moisture on the surface and in the pulp of the paper. So when I apply this ink now, it's very much surface oriented. It's kind of floating on the top of other wet inks that are already applied, the distress inks, and to some extent the black from before. All right, but kind of, now it's really hard to build up here because it is just so wet. But you can. Just by kind of lightly tapping it like that. This is where a lot of the, the really kind of refined blending happens when you're doing it, when you get to the stage and you're really going wet into wet. You can really kind of build things up and blend them. It happens a little bit slower because you're not applying as much because there's no, absorption taking place, or very little. And this is also where I don't have any affiliation with any kind of manufacturer, believe me. But this is where Marvy kind of comes into play, because it's a thinner ink. It's able to penetrate those thicker inks like this that we've built up on there, okay? But like I said, you can always heat set, okay? And dry things out, and then apply more if you want to go darker, and it just won't get any darker without doing that, okay? All right, I think I'm going to do a trick on this one here. Sometimes this is all warm-toned hue in here. The distressed walnut and antique linen, those are warm tones. It doesn't look super warm, now that's applied over all this black here, but what I'm going to do, I'll try it here, is I'm going to put in a little change of hue here, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'll go with some of this tumbled glass here. It's just a really light blue. If you have a Memento Summer Sky, well, maybe I'll use the Memento, actually. That'll be easier. I just want a tiny bit of this summer sky right in here, okay? Maybe on a couple of the rocks, okay? But here, I'll just take a little bit of this paper towel like this. Just a really light blue. And I don't know, this might represent moonlight or something like that. But what it is it's temperature change. You're going from everything warm in here, or neutral, and just adding a tinge of coolness in here. Okay, it looks like my summer sky is a little bit dry, but that's good. I don't want to apply too much of this at any given time. Let's see if you can kind of see what this looks like here. It harmonizes pretty well with the other colors around there. I can go blue into that warmth, and it's so light that it doesn't really affect it too much, but I don't know, can you see the difference right there? That little richness. It's a temperature change amongst this whole area here. Okay. Let's add a little bit more. I think it can take it, so let's go a little bit more here. Sometimes I add a little touch of warmth into cool. We're seeing like a slight warm moon amongst a dark midnight blue sky or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit more of this in a couple little areas here for a little bit of continuity. You might not be able to see, oh, there's blue there, blue, blue, okay, or something like that, but what this does is it just kind of creates a little bit of, I don't know, visual continuity, maybe even on a subconscious level, provided you can see it, But there it is in there. So do you see the little tinges of blue in here throughout? Here it is right here, but I put a little bit in here. So it just changes it. It doesn't look... What we've done is we've expanded the temperature range from everything neutral to cool, or warm, I should say. Now we've just gone a tiny bit into the cool, okay, where none of the cool existed. So you do have this temperature range in there now. Featuring a little bit of coolness, okay? Now, you might need to put a little bit more, because that might, these colors, sometimes they dry kind of dull or duller. Lighter, for sure. All right, so, you just kind of add it in accordingly like that. And, that looks pretty good there, I think. All right. Now, one of the things that I've been doing is I've been adding in some extra textures. Okay, I like my little tiny rocks stamp here for that. Let me put straight across here. I thought it wouldn't fit on this block, but it does. This is my tiniest little block with a little tiny bit of tack and peel on it. Okay, so I'm going in here, and I'm just going to add in. I mean, I'm not adding, there's no foliage or anything like that in here, so adding some extra texture can be kind of beneficial for the overall kind of look of the piece. So those little rocks down there. So here's what I do. I'm inking it up, and with the black, I'm adding it into the real dark areas, okay? But then as I tap it like this, and it gets much lighter on here, I'm going into the lighter areas, so I get a real light impression in the light area, okay? So like that. I mean, you can hit a dark one in there if you want to, the light area. It doesn't have to all be kind of this shimmery little, addition. In fact, I'll go like that just for a little bit of a change, but now these will kind of blend in a little bit more. Okay, but you see those textures down there? So it's not just, kind of blank in there. And there's different sizes of these rocks too. You can use kind of the larger ones here, just for a little bit of shape variation. But it just kind of adds to the overall richness again of the piece. So we do all the little tricks like that. Oh, let's try something here too. Okay. Let's go with a little bit of white ink. Here, I'll take some Brilliance White, okay? I guess I should clean off this stamp a little bit more. Okay, that's my clean off right there. Okay, I'm not going to make you wait. Watch me clean a stamp. Okay, so adding some of this down here. So this is white, so I'm starting in the light area, and I'll work out into the darkness. Get it? I don't know if I can even see it on there. It's almost invisible. It's like yin and yang. You get white versions of it, and then you get the dark versions, okay? Okay, let's we'll add a little bit up here onto these rocks. I'm adding it into the light areas of the rocks. This is almost like a lighting texture here. I'm kind of illuminating a little bit some of those areas in there. It doesn't show up too much. I mean, we could do stuff like this too. Okay, let's take this and let's go into the walnut stain, okay? And let's see if that shows up at all. A little bit, or quite a bit actually. I'm surprised that's what that looks like, because kind of toning the walnut stain like that, swiping it in there, I don't get that color at all. But stamping it, we get that color. So it's integrated into here. Definitely a textural kind of lesson in that piece right there. So see there's different colors down there. That's going to mellow out a little bit too when it dries. It'll be much lighter than that. It'll be a little bit more integrated. Let's see if we can see some of those white. See those little white impressions like that right on top there? But doesn't that look like a real rock by just layering in those colors like that and some additional textures? You can see that impression of the walnut stain like that. But I mean, this is what this looks like really. That. Doesn't that look like real three-dimensional? You can see like little holes in here for Shelob to retreat to, whatever. that spider go? Oh, yeah. I gotta figure out a way to kind of attach this right in here. But I think I'll put it right here or something. It looks spooky, or kind of coming in like this. Might be interesting too, from behind. Like sneaking up from behind. Okay, so let's take a look at this and let's see what this is going to do. I think I'll put them right here, right in the illuminated area. With this one right here, we're just stamping one figure. So I think I've only inked up one figure there. Doesn't look like it. I got the hand. We got a little bit of that texture around there. I'm going to just soften up some of that little texture. It's the foundation. I usually create a foundation on the bottom for things to kind of get established with. I'm going to see if I can take that little bill off the hat, just a slight amount. Go like this. Okay, nice light, even pressure. Don't squash them. All right, got a little figure there. Now I'll need to do some adjustments to it, right? With a little, I think their hair is a little bit bigger and whatnot. I might pause here for a minute to bring up some references on my computer right next to me. Take a look at Samwise and see his thing. I think he's wearing like some shorts too, but we'll look and see what we can do to alter the figure. Okay, it's hard to find some reference showing them from the Samwise from the back. It's always from the front. So I'm just going to have to wing it here. All right, so let's see what we can do here. All right, I'm looking at a photograph now. A little action figure. I'm going to put the pen. I don't even know if this pen's working. I have a little kind of micron style. All right, looks like this one's not going to work. Oops. This pen's not even... Oh, here we go. Here we go. Is this working or not? All right, I need to find a better pen here. Let's see this one. Papermate. That's a roller ball. All right, well, this is a roller ball too. This is like a 20-year-old roller ball, I think. I used to use these ones a lot. Okay, so let's see if I can just... I'm going to take his cape and kind of run it down like about like so. I'm going to put in some pants too, like, different pants like this. And then the cape's kind of coming down like this. And like that. And come back over this way. And I'm going to make some little bit bigger hair here. Kind of a bigger head. And this isn't looking great, but I think it'll do. A little bit more broad shoulders, like so. It's coming around okay, actually. Something like that. All right, now that really stands out a little bit too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of render him out a little bit, tone with some tone here. There's just some alcohol pens. I need to integrate the character a little bit more with the surrounding area. Okay, so let's give him a little bit of a color to that backpack. Like about like so, and let's grab a gray pen like that, and let's kind of position them a little bit more into that surrounding area with a little bit of shadow, like that. Now, these pens are really great too. You can hit, some of these areas and fine-tune your coloring. And what's great about the alcohol pens is they don't. I was getting a little smearing, but because I think it was smearing my ballpoint pen, but that's okay. But you can go in here like this, and you can color in some additional areas that, just a paper towel, wadded up paper towel at that, can't get in as well. Like right in here, I can get like right in there. Actually, it is kind of lifting up. I think some of my inks are still a little bit wet, but in theory, though, in terms of the, the composition of this ink, it shouldn't be kind of blending in dye-based inks. Okay, so this is going in with the black, going in here and just kind of making some of that darkness a little bit darker, like that. And then what I do is I go back in with my blender. Okay, I go dark and then I go back in with the lighter one just to kind of blend that out a little bit. It integrates it a little bit better. Okay, so you can get a little bit of that color down there and just kind of spread it around, like about like so. All right. Okay, like that. And then what I like to do, here's a blue right here. You can kind of go in here and kind of blend that shadow in a touch. Okay, so that is that. Now, I wasn't too worried about this figure down here integrating perfectly, okay, because I plan on doing some extra little touches in here too with, let's grab some of that white pigment ink here, and let's grab a little cotton ball, and let's add in just kind of a little bit more atmosphere. We have everything's real crunchy and sharp and kind of focused in here. Well, let's add a little bit of softness with some white pigment ink on just a cotton ball. My theory on cotton balls is that if we want a soft application of something, then I don't know, there's hardly anything that's softer in terms of a little applicator that we can use than a cotton ball. Okay, so I think that gives me kind of the right texture that I want. Okay, you don't really see anything very much because I'm doing it, in white over a light area. Okay, but now see what I start doing is I start bringing it into the darker area. It's really where light meets dark is kind of where I utilize this type of texture or I don't know, application of light. I don't really use it in the darker areas because this kind of represents kind of this little diffused, lighting due to moisture in the air being illuminated. If there's darkness in there, there's no light. Okay. All right, so when I was talking about this little figure here, not worrying about is I planned on coming over him a little bit. We integrated him by kind of adding a shadow down there, but then you integrate him too by adding a little bit of that atmosphere around him in the form of that kind of cloudy mist. Okay, see that right down there? See how he's really integrated in with the area now by putting him in, a little bit of that fog or mist or whatnot. Kind of adds, to the atmosphere, don't you think? It's just kind of this, you can feel the atmosphere, you can feel the air around you, and I like adding kind of kinesthetics into the visuals. You want to make things visually kinesthetic. In terms of the designs, my designs, I want things with texture so you can kind of feel, you visually feel something, okay? And if you can visually feel something, what you're doing is you're kind of making these little references for people so that you're not just using one sense, visual. A lot of the stamp designs out there are just straight visual. They don't incorporate as much kind of texture, and you can kind of do that on your own, with doing things like this. You can bring that into it, but, if it's inherently in a design, it gives you a little bit of head start, but then doing all these little extra things like this really kind of adds to that spirit, so you can just reiterate as opposed to having to create something from scratch like that. So like on these rocks right here, everything's very, very textural. Okay, so adding this in, so I'm not adding it everywhere. I'm kind of doing these little things where it's like mist kind of rising like that. I mean, you can adjust it too, but I think that kind of adds to the overall kind of, I don't know, essence. Okay, if you want to have a really specific area, you want to do that with, maybe use a Q-tip, as opposed to kind of wider applicator like that. This would be really cool to add in like a, one of those little sliders and connect that spider to it so you can slide it back and forth from the back. Well, that'd be cool. I'm not going to do that. That's something that I've seen on the boards. Anytime I see kind of moving parts on cards, I really love that look, because I used to love those types of things. I love like pop-up cards, books that had pop-ups and little sliders on like kids' picture books. Anytime you get something that moves, it's like that extra little bonus that really puts it way over the top in terms of kind of the overall presentation of a piece. Okay, so we have that going on right there. See that little stick there? I kind of mistakenly, stamped out a little piece of another figure, so I'm just going to take my white pen. It's kind of like a little whiteout pen in a way, the way that I use it, and since it's in a light area, I can just kind of go in there. I'm not going to just kind of, blot it out in general. I'm just going to put a few little dots over it, but going in here and adding in a little bit of texture, okay? All my stamps are designed with tonal little black dots. But this is a way to go into the piece and to kind of finish things off. Again, that's that kind of yin-yang type of thing. The designs and this composition start off with, black impressions made of tone. This is a kind of way to go back in, and it's the complementary texture. It's just in white, like that. Okay, so I'm adding in those little textures around him like that. Do you see those right in there? Those little dots. Sometimes you're doing it, it represents stars or something like that when up in the sky, but it can just represent highlighting, texture, moisture, whatever. Now see, I'm just kind of adding it in these lighter areas where light meets dark, okay? And then you kind of dissipate it. You have it a little bit more of a concentration in the lit areas, illuminated areas. And then the more it stands out, kind of the less I use, okay? But it sure makes for a nice textural statement. Lighting, too, because it is light. So see, in the lighter areas, you add more, and then you spread them out the farther you get away from that light. those look super dimensional if possible. Again, because, you know, this is a kind of a limited range. We don't have like a background mountain in there or a moon or a sun, you know what I mean, that represent, you know. So, relatively speaking, you know, this is a kind of a shorter, you know, space that we're working in. So, we like to create a lot of depth within, you know, the forms like that. Okay, so look at this little spider right here. I think this would be kind of cool like that. Kind of like coming in from the outside. I don't have like a spider stamp, but I do think the three-dimensional part of this would be kind of cool like this or something, you know, where you see like the hands like that. Oh, that would be kind of interesting, like from up there. I think what I'll do is you know, I mat this, but it could even be coming in from off the mat, you know what I mean, where it's like you have it on the mat and coming into the scene like that, but kind of halfway off and halfway on. But that would be kind of interesting right there. So I'll have to kind of mount it on something or glue it down. But wouldn't that be a fun card, you know? I'm thinking hot melt gun, you know, to mount this down. I don't know. Maybe I won't do it for right now, but you know, I'll kind of think about that. But that little thing where you have this kind of, wouldn't this be kind of cool like this or like this? Where it moves across. I mean, that would make for a really dynamic card. I'll have one of you guys do that, though, instead. Yeah, everyone's so good at kind of like card formatting and everything like that. I haven't even done one of those things before, but... Okay, so anyways, I think that's about it. Hope you enjoyed the card. There's little tunnels right in here. Oh, let's take a little close-up here. You can see what those little white dots did. You see them right in here? How kind of subtle they are. I mean, you know, if you're looking at it from like 2 inches away, you can see them. But see, it just adds to the overall richness down here. Here you have it down here. There we go. And you can see those little sparkling, illuminated lights. Even right over here, kind of in the darker areas, you can see those little white dots in here, adding to the overall kind of texturing and lighting of the piece, but yeah. All right, so yeah, I'll figure out some ways to glue that down. But there she is. There's my third cave piece. I want to thank the person that gave me the idea for kind of Lord of the Rings. That's what they brought up. They brought up the Mines of Warrior, but then I was thinking, oh, Shelob would be perfect, you know, that cave piece like that. Something like that there. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.